Well, I want to spend just a little time geeking out on a subject that I know you enjoy talking about, and that is big band arrangements. You know a lot about the history of big bands, and when I was in the jazz band that one year, I got a wonderful close look at big band arrangements for the first time. Now, I studied orchestration and I've written for the orchestra, but I've never written for the big band. My teacher, Ted Howe, who's an amazing arranger, said that there was a difference between orchestration and arranging, but he didn't elaborate. Can you talk about the difference?
Arranging is taking a song, and it could be, you could arrange it for three musicians. You know, you have the top part, you have a harmony part, or you're going to play the A section or B section, and you come in and play, and then we're going to play it in unison. That's an arrangement of a song. Orchestration is very is close to arranging, but you're taking a melody and you're orchestrating it for a larger ensemble. They're both almost identical, but there's a slight difference. When you say arranging, you're thinking about a smaller group. But if you're orchestrating, you know, you have for a orchestra, because you have unlimited colors. But in a jazz group, we have four trumpets, five saxophones, a saxophone choir. It gives us a lot of color and range. In trombones, of not as much color and range. So most of our color is going to come from juxtaposing the low brass and high brass and the saxophones, which have incredible timbre and range. You have everything from soprano to a baritone sax or bass clarinet. So they have more color. They're capable of that. And then as an arranger, you have to understand how harmony works. You have to understand how you combine different instruments. Way back in the 20s, they used what's called block writing. So they would take a chord, a C chord, and for this trumpet, it would be C, G, E, and then maybe a C on the bottom, and then repeat that for all the sections. So it sounded okay, but not, it's like Wonder Bread with just some butter on it. I mean, it's not going to kill you, but it's not like something I want to have more of that. And then as orchestrators started studying more European music and realized you can do so much more with combining different instruments to create colors. I think of an orchestra or jazz orchestra as a palette, and you have all these different colors. Like Duke Ellington, when he would compose, he wasn't writing for Cootie Williams. I mean, he was writing for Cootie Williams and Johnny Hodges and Barney Bigard and Tricky Sam Natton and Harry Carney. So he was writing colors. So the best composers, starting in the probably the late 30s and early 40s, started thinking more about color, mood, and timbre and texture, and combining these instruments to get those kind of textures that you would hear in an orchestral piece. All they had to do is look at Beethoven and Mozart. They were basically doing the same kinds of things, voicing this instrument with this instrument here, like colors, and you put a red and a pink and mix a little purple in there, you're going to have a kind of an unusual color. And that's what great orchestrators can do. And they can also shift melodies from up here to in here to down here and juxtapose voicings. Like you figure, like a bass trombone can't play the melody, put the bass trombone up here and the woodwinds down here, and it gives you a completely different color. And then,
Yeah.
of course, your understanding of harmony and which notes you can double and then which notes you can alter. Just think about, Stravinsky, Bartok, and Copland, the kinds of things that they were doing. Jazz musicians were very, very interested in those things, and they borrowed very heavily from the European the European orchestral composers, and that really starts happening by the mid to late 1940s, and in the 50s you have full blown borrowing from European music. If you think about Gil Evans and the kind of things that he was doing, so it's about arranging is changing the things, not using block, and then just changing to create colors and mood and texture. And with the jazz band, I'm sure you experience it with me at Georgia State. We do everything from Count Basie, we call the block kind of harmon drop two or block voicings, which are just standard fare, but it's really good. And then we do some more modern things. I think it's really important for me to expose our students to a wide variety of different styles of jazz. We had Miguel Zenon as a guest in 2022, and his music was like nothing we had ever played. It was orchestral. The colors were unbelievable. And the kids were like, we can't play this. Yes, we can. And we took it apart little by little. And by the time he was here, he couldn't believe the level. He sent that music to, you know, serious groups in New York and Europe, and they thought they were just going to play it, but we worked really hard on it. So I want my students to be able to play a wide variety of different types of music, tightly controlled, constructed kind of stuff that's wide open and loose, and you never know what's going to happen, to more control, to traditional stuff, to maybe an old tune but done in a different way. And I bring in composers to do short residencies, and they do master classes. And with our students, Mike Holliber was here back in a year ago, and he's an amazing composer. And he just showed them how he creates his voicings and his colors. And I'm like, I'm just amazed that someone can do that. That's always been kind of something I've never really delved into it, but composing is different from arranging. Arranging is slightly different from orchestrating. But orchestrating is that's some heavy lifting there.
Well, let me ask this question. I've orchestrated and I've written several pieces for the orchestra. I've never written for the jazz orchestra. Do I need to take a course on that, or can I survive with my orchestration skills because I know my ranges and
You
I?
could probably you're going to learn mostly through trial and error. That's the Duke Ellington way. This worked, we put it in the pile over here. This works, this doesn't. Keep that over here. And there are tutorials. There's some wonderful books that can kind of teach you about, you know, how to combine different voice. We call it voicing across section, juxtaposing ranges of instruments. But you can just start with just basic stuff, and then you say, write that for your group. I didn't like that. And then through trial and error, you will start to improve. But there are many, you know, with the internet now, you can go onto a website and someone can give you like the basics of drop two voicing, drop two, drop four, which is a kind of a bassy style. And then voicing across section kinds of things, which are way more complex, like again, like Mike Holliber or Miguel Zenon or Maria Schneider, or there's some amazing composers and arrangers out there that are doing stuff that no one else has done. But you can certainly arrange, use those concepts. It might not sound as jazzy as you like, and say, well, I think I'm going to change the voicing. I'm going to put a sharp nine in there. I'm going to put a flat nine in there. I'm going to put the flat seventh down low and see what kind of grind that gives me, as opposed to using just block voicings. Just through trial and error. And then, of course, if you do it on finale, you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to sound
What's the state of big band music today? Obviously, its heyday was the '30s. So how's it going?
like. You have people that still like Basie. Basie's my favorite. You know, I mean, I love all the modern stuff, but ain't nothing like a Count Basie band. You know, from the '50s and early '60s. That's my go-to. I love that. But there are bands that are borrowing from Basie, but they're also borrowing from very, very contemporary trends in music and doing some amazing things. And then there are bands in Europe and Asia that are just killing it. There's a one group called Ensemble Donata, and they're incorporating. It's all live, but they're incorporating turntables and all
Huh.
kinds of scratching and stuff like this. It's just, I played it from some of my students, and they just couldn't believe it. I said they're from Norway, and there are groups from China, from Japan, from other Far Eastern countries that they're really interested in. They're combining their own native indigenous sounds, combining with American jazz. And so there is no sure, we are not in trouble. In fact, there's more stuff out there that is just, it's almost an embarrassment of riches. The old standard stuff is still great, but I'm always looking for a balance between something that is off the beaten trail, that's different, and then balancing that with, you know, this is where we came from. This is Fletcher Henderson's arrangement. This is Cy Oliver. This is Duke Ellington. This is stuff from the Basie band. Because it all comes from there. But I guess if it comes from the heart and it comes from inspiration, I can appreciate it. But there's also a lot of horrible stuff out there too. So you have to be able to tell the difference and what makes this great and this not so great.
Yeah.
Why do I like this and why do I not like this? But then again, there's, as my mother would say, there's no accounting for people's taste.
Well, talk a little bit about how people can find you. How can they learn more about GSU? How can they learn about your jam at the red light?
Um, I've been running jam sessions off and on for 25 years. And I would play at a club or a place, a bar, or a little restaurant, and then that would run its course, and then we'd have to find another place. And then for maybe a year or two, didn't have one. But right now we've been at the Red Light since 2015, close to 10 years. We've been at the Red Light Cafe, and it's I call it a jam session. But one of the problems with running a jam session, the uninitiated think that's an invitation for an open mic, and it's not. So we expect that someone who wants to sit in and play, that they have an understanding of the style of music or the language that we're playing. I mean, it'd be like there people are speaking, say, a dialect of Chinese over here, and I walk up and I start speaking English. They're going to look at me like it doesn't fit. So that's a kind of a rash um, example, but people have to understand our language, and then they come out and they want to sit in and sing. And I've been amazed. We have some amazingly talented musicians are coming in off the road. They're playing at the Fox Theater. They come in and say, yeah, absolutely, come on. I had a youngster, a 17-year-old from Memphis, played the bass. He was very shy. So I played the bass. I said, you know some songs? He goes, yeah, I know a couple. I said, what do you know? And he listed like 2 or 3 songs. I said, yeah, come on up here. This kid was amazing. I mean, Neil Starkey was out. There was the bass player that night. And I said, Starkey, what do you think of that? And he goes, this kid can play. He was only 17 years old. So we get some young precocious ones, and it's an opportunity for young musicians to kind of see what they can do, and also to see what you can't do. The Red Light Cafe is in Midtown, and we're there every Wednesday from 9 to midnight ish. Last week we had so many good musicians. We went to after 12. But there are other jam sessions in town. Joe Granson's been doing one at the Napoleon's. There's one at 10 ATL, and there's little pop-ups all around the city. There's live music at some of the breweries where some of my young musicians, students and former students are running sessions all over the city. But we have a certain level of expectation at the Red Light Cafe. And if a young musician wants to play, I'm going to ask them certain questions. And if they can't answer them, if you don't know the song or the key, I can tell. Sometimes most of the time I'm correct. Or if a singer wants to get up and perform with us that I'm not familiar with, I'll say, what song do you want to sing? And they'll say such and such a song. I say, well, that's kind of a jazzy tune. What key? I don't know. Well, that's a problem, because then I have to get on the bandstand and it looks very unprofessional. We're trying to figure out what key it's in. And then by that time I know that this is probably not going to be great. Or if a singer gets up and says, yeah, I want to do take the A train. I want it in the key of C. I want the introduction, and I'll sing the out chorus. Okay, then obviously this person has done their homework. So jam sessions traditionally are a place where musicians get to go to see what they can do, and more importantly, what they can't do and what they need to work on. And I approach it the same way. If we play a song and I kind of bumble my way through it, that night I'm at home, we're looking at music or listening to recordings to make sure that that doesn't happen to me again. So it's a never ending process. But the Red Light Cafe, we've been doing it for 10 years, and it's so much fun. And acoustics there are really wonderful. So you can find me there every Wednesday. If you want to find me at Georgia State, you just Google Gordon Vernick GSU, and I gave up my website years ago, and I just have stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and I have recordings, good and stuff I wish it wasn't out there, floating around in the internet land. I mean, you can't get away from that stuff. So you can find. I'm pretty easy to find, but every Wednesday at the Red Light Cafe.
Well, Dr. Vernick, thank you for the program you've built. Thank you for the time you spent with me. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for the time you spent talking to us today.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And Adam, I'm hoping to see you at the Red Light Cafe. They love us so much at the Red Light. They bought 2 really high-end keyboards for us,
Ah,
bass amp. And so my guys, I just say, you want to play keyboard, and most pianists that say, "Oh, man, I got to schlep out a keyboard." No, no, we have a Roland or a Yamaha Montage, and those are really high end instruments. So it makes it easier. And it was sometimes we get like 5 or 6 of the best keyboard players, pianists in town, and it's almost an embarrassment of riches, to get to hear these unbelievable musicians.
Wow. Well, my regular jam session has just ended forever, so I think I may have to pay you a visit.
Well, I will be looking for you, Adam.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Okay, thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Thanks. And thank you, audience, very much for joining us. We hope this was a treat for you as it was a treat for me. If you want to learn more, feel free to check us out on YouTube. And if there's someone you want to see on this show, let me know and I'll see if I can get them on here for you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Okay, take care.